Charlie, Arsenal have, well, they already won the league, but they've had another party and they are riding a high heading into the Champions League final. 2-1 against Crystal Palace. What a way to end the season.
Brilliant. You know, it's ticked so many boxes, hasn't it, Josh? Like, it's ended up being quite comfortable. So for a start, people that say, well, you know, it all hinged on this decision and that decision, Arsenal were clear and deserved winners. B, that meant that Arsenal fans could really enjoy Sunday without any pressure on. So it meant it was, you know, it was the second party, because obviously they had the party when City slipped up at Bournemouth, and of course we could have a third party on Saturday night and a fourth party on Monday. So with the weather, I think Arsenal fans are all going to have lost their voices, bright reds with sunshine, and absolutely skint by that Monday night. But look, it's brilliant. You talk about making memories, because of course, as we've said before, this is, you know, it's a generation of football fans that understandably can't remember, 22 years ago. So, you know, for a huge number, this is the first time they've been able to do it. So this, and you know, I don't know how you feel, Josh, but you know, this has been the greatest week in the lives, the sporting lives, the supporting lives of many, all Arsenal football fans, actually.
Yeah, I think especially that generation, like you say, of fans that haven't had that experience, that don't remember 04, that certainly don't remember, you know, going back into the double winning seasons and things like that. It has to be. You know, I know a whole generation of fans that have been living off those FA Cup victories, and you know, when they happened, they were great. But this is another level. And I was down at the Emirates Stadium on Sunday to sort of capture and be around some of the celebrations, and you could see it, you could sense it. You know, the amount of people looking around, sort of in tears, and saying, like, I never thought I'd see this day, and just so much excitement. And it felt to me like Tuesday night when they won it was the release. That sort of feeling around the stadium was like a release of 22 years of wait, and Sunday was the party. It was, they know they've won it now. They can just go there, enjoy it, celebrate it with loved ones, and like you say, the party can continue if they pull off something even more remarkable this weekend in the Champions League final. Let's very briefly touch on the Crystal Palace game, because I doubt anyone else is caring about it. I doubt Mikel Arteta has dissected it, anything like that. I think first of all, the team news. You know, there was a few nods, a few players got a run out. Max Dowman got to play, Kepa in goal, Christian Norgard got his first Premier League start. Good to see a few of those players get out on the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I didn't watch the game. I mean, I wasn't there. I was watching West Ham their demise from the Premier League. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't seen the game. I'm obviously aware who started. It was nice, incredible that Dowman. What an incredible few days it's been for him, from GCSEs to picking up the title, becoming the youngest title winner. So look, he was always going to swap, and that was the beauty of the Manchester City game, the defeat of Bournemouth, that it gave just an extra chance for Arsenal to rewrite history and beat PSG, and I think got a great chance simply because by now the vast majority of Arsenal players will have bruises, cuts, aches and pains. Players play with this for most of the time anyway. So to actually have, to be given pretty much 2 weeks, for some to miss the game or play very little in it, it was an amazing thing. And it also gave, say the likes of Norgard a run out. Just it's been perfect. Last 10 days have been, last two weeks have been absolutely perfect. And who'd have thought that? A few games this season when it all went, Bournemouth and obviously Manchester City, even when they were cocking it up against Wolves, Arsenal remain strong and City have slipped. And again, as we said earlier, there isn't anybody that can't say Arsenal deserve winners. And the Palace game will be remembered for the party, won't it? It won't be remembered for the football match. No, that was irrelevant.
No. No, it won't be. And you talk about perfect. I tell you, there's certainly one thing Mikel Arteta will think is perfect, is that their first goal of the season came from a set piece, and their last goal of the Premier League season came from a set piece. So there's two set pieces to bookend a season that many will remember as being Arsenal's set piece winning season. So that's a little bit of something that I'm sure he'll enjoy, and the team will enjoy as well. Like you said, I'll be remembered for those celebrations. I think that was a really special moment for those players to get their hands on the trophy, to celebrate with the few fans that managed to make the trip to Selhurst Park. There was a few moments there that felt really like full circle moments. I think Bukayo Saka getting his hands on that trophy after, was it 6 years ago now, saying that, you know, Arsenal fans deserve more, deserve better, when they were in that period of real trouble before Mikel Arteta, you know, even started getting the results that the Arsenal fans have grown used to now. That was a nice moment for him. And then also, I thought Victor Gyökeres as well, to have a season going through so much sort of criticism, and you know, we haven't been light in our criticism of him at times, and he has battled through that, and he's ended the Premier League season as the top scorer of the champions, and those celebrations are, you know, something that the fans and the players deserve.
Yeah, and you know, for players like Gyökeres, you know, it's the start of an incredible few weeks, and you know, we should not, as I think we mentioned before with Gyökeres, and he got through a lot of stick. I think next season he'll score even more goals and he'll play with more confidence. The team will understand him. You know, look, I know he played at Coventry and at Brighton, but you know, we always give strikers from overseas the first season to adjust, and Gyökeres, I know he's looked terrible at times, hasn't been given that. And next season, in all competitions, Victor Gyökeres will score over 30 goals. I'm absolutely convinced of it. I mean, you know, he's done all right this season. And, you know, you think at the start of the season, Gyökeres joins Arsenal, he's won the title, he's got the Champions League coming up, and then he single-handedly got Sweden to the World Cup finals. You know, scored a hat-trick in the semi-final and got the winner. I mean, what... And I noticed an improvement since March. When he came back, he was a foot taller. He had a little bit more confidence. It was clear in his game that what happened to Sweden helped him with Arsenal, I think. Just gave him a bit more belief. And, you know, Arteta hasn't liked talking about... He's really rubbish when you ask him about players on international. He always says, like, you know, park that. You know, I told the players... You know, he obviously had other players that got, you know, through the World Cup as well. Obviously for Odegaard it was massive. I think that's linked to him chickening out of some tackles, by the way, in the last couple of weeks. But you know, it's all very well for Arteta to say, I've told the players to park that when they came back to Arsenal. But that I don't think he really means that, because if you're coming in on the high, you don't want the player to forget that. You want them to carry on playing, you know, to feel 10 feet tall. You know, it's maybe a bit different for any players that have, you know, suffered pain, or any players that, you know, ahead of the Champions League final have not got into their respective squads. Obviously, Mosquera's missed out at the World Cup, but Ray is in. But it's all linked, Josh. It's all linked, and you can't take that away. And I think, yeah, for some players now, this is it. This is in the middle. You know, it's not going to end there. The Champions League final. We're going to be seeing them, well, in less than a month's time in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So it's all going to be very interesting.
So it wasn't just the players who were celebrating on the pitch as well, though. I want to talk about Stan and Josh Kroenke. They were there. This has been their project since they took full ownership of Arsenal. That's sort of where there started to be improvements in results on the pitch. They invested heavily in Mikel Arteta, both financially in terms of, you know, investing in the squad and the players he wanted, but also they've invested in him as a coach. They put faith in him as a coach in a way that their model has done across a lot of US sports. We know obviously they've got teams across the NBA, the NHL, the MLS, the NFL. So this is what they do. They like young coaches. They like young coaches that have got a project. and they completed that project, and it was again a full circle moment from, I think it was 5 years ago now, maybe 6, where there was an open letter penned from Arsenal fans, Arsenal supporters group, to the Kroenkes and to KSE about the way the ownership was going and how the club felt like it was going in the wrong direction. Now there was, well, I would say they were chanting their name. They weren't chanting their name. I was watching it, and every player that lifted up the trophy got their name chanted. When Josh Kroenke lifted it up, there was just chants of USA, USA. But there was a time where I don't think that Arsenal fans ever thought that they would get to see that, or even see the owners, be so involved. And I know this is only Stan Kroenke's first game since, I believe, the first leg of the semi-final against PSG last season. But Josh is there often. He's a face now of the club, and I think they deserve immense credit for the faith and the trust they've put in Mikel Arteta.
They deserve immense credit, but for actually listening to the Arsenal fans and the AST and other organisations that were chipping away, because the club were drifting, and that was the Kroenkes' fault for the way they were approaching it. I think they thought that, I don't think they understood that the difference between English football and American sport in terms of the relationship you have to have with the fans, the investment you have to put in with the team. Obviously, it's just totally different. And, Arsenal were not investing in the team. Initially we had that period, obviously, when, after the Champions League final in 2006, Arsenal moved into the Emirates. They were still paying off the stadium, weren't they, for years? But the Kroenkes took a while to get their heads around it. They have to be praised for listening. And so I think the supporters and the Kroenkes, all deserve huge credit. And then, of course, the Kroenkes really opened up the cash to Mikel Arteta. He's been given over £1 billion. But you can't just say Arsenal have won it because of that. They've obviously been helped by that, and they should have been in the frame for that. But, look at Tottenham, what they've spent. Look at West Ham. Look at Everton. They've all spent huge sums. 6, 7, 8, 900 million pounds. So, £1 billion, bizarrely, doesn't guarantee you the title. So, but the Kroenkes now have been rewarded with that investment, because they've now got a football club that, although Arsenal are going to take an absolutely huge short-term financial hit, what they haven't to pay in bonuses now. Every single player, there will be an extra, £800,000 to Gyökeres, £800,000 to Sporting Lisbon for Gyökeres winning the title. There was a myth, this story, that Arsenal were going to have to pay, was it Paris, was like £7.5, £10 million for Eze bonus. That was rubbish. But the clause in that contract was having to pay Paris £1 million for qualifying for the Champions League, which they've done a while back. But there was so many clauses, millions and millions and millions of pounds. The cost of this, I don't know what it is, but the cost of this bus parade Monday, shutting down, a quarter of London, is costing them huge amounts. But what the club is worth, what they will now make, what as Premier League champions, moving forward, let alone if they go and win the Champions League, will put Arsenal, it's putting Arsenal back on a different level, European-wise, and in the world. And the interesting thing, talking to people in Europe, particularly Spanish Germans, they couldn't get their heads around why Arsenal fans were prioritising the league ahead of the Champions League, which they all were, weren't they? No one could understand that, because in Europe it's the other way around. But now you've got that out of the way. If Arsenal go and win the Champions League as well, they are, if not already, a huge world force. Really are. And could dominate for a couple of years.
And in the eyes of the fans as well, this squad, just you can talk about what that would do in terms of their reputation across the world and across Europe, attracting players, the financial power it would give them. But in terms of the fans as well, I think these fans, if this group of players can win the Premier League and the Champions League in one season, they will go down in history as the greatest alongside that invincible team, because it is a feat that nobody has ever achieved in an Arsenal shirt before, and they will genuinely go down in history. And I was outside the Emirates, like I say, amongst the fans during those celebrations on Sunday, and you could sense that the Premier League was the important thing. Everyone was sort of saying, you know, free hit against PSG in that Champions League final. What a moment it would be if they won it. But the pressure is off the back, and it seems like it's off the players' back as well. You know, the Premier League was what they wanted, and the Champions League, you know, it sounds like a mental thing to say, but the Champions League is the cherry on top if they can win it, because what a campaign that will be if they do.
Can I just ask you a question? So are you saying that they would be level with the Invincibles if they won the Champions League?
I think in terms of the way that Arsenal fans look at them, I think you're probably
right. I disagree with you, and I think you are probably right with the fans. If Arsenal win the Champions League, it's the best achievement in their history. Incredible Champions League and league. You know, even just looking at the big. Look at Bayern Munich. Look at all the Real Madrid. How they've struggled to do that. To do that is one of the it's up there with the greatest achievements in English football. The best achievement in Arsenal's history, in my opinion, and one of the great achievements in world football. Doesn't matter. It may not have been pretty. They were still struggling against Burnley. It doesn't matter if they were able to pull this off. That team, that manager, is immortal. And I'm even sure Arsene Wenger, if this happens, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves now. And I still think, by the way, that the other Arsenal teams, the other two double-winning teams, were actually better to watch than the Invincibles team. But the double-winning teams under Wenger. What an achievement! Just that'd be unbelievable if they do that.
Look, it would be incredible, and I'm not saying. I'm only saying that they'll be on par because I think that they would both be achievements that. Well, the Invincibles one is something that no other English team has achieved, and obviously the double winning one would be something that no other Arsenal team has achieved. So that's where you think, and then I think there would be the debate. But even to sit here and be able to debate, whether this team is the greatest Arsenal team in history, or whether 5 years ago, when we were looking at the squad that Arsenal were playing with and the situation they were in, that was a pipe dream. And now Arsenal are in a genuine position where they are on potentially 90 minutes away from being immortal, like you say, from going down in history, from there being the statues around that ground of Tony Adams, of Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp. Maybe in 10 years' time, if they achieve this, they'll be one of Declan Rice or Bukayo Saka or Gabriel. This team genuinely has the potential to be immortal, like you say. Let's have a brief look ahead to the Champions League final then. It's not going to be an easy game. We've sat here and been like, they're going to win it. They're going to be immortal. But they have got a real task on their hands to get the better of a brilliant Paris Saint-Germain side. Do you make them underdogs?
No, I think it's 50-50. Obviously, PSG have the experience now. And I think this season, I don't think last year, though, however many games they lost in the group stages, they obviously flourished in the latter stages and were worthy winners. I think this season they've had that know-how. You can see they look more comfortable even when things have gone against them. So they've got that experience. Arsenal, by the fact that they've just ploughed through everybody really they've played, up there. And I know sometimes PSG have put weaker teams in the league because they've been able to, and they've been preparing for the Champions League, but they've still failed to win 10 of their games. 10 matches in the league they've not won out of 34. So we're looking at an incredibly good team with a brilliant front three, a really sort of dynamic central midfield. The weakness is the goalkeeper, and guess what he's weak at? Set pieces. Which team would he probably not want to play against? So guess what? Guess what could settle the game? So it's Arsenal will not admit it, and it's the press conference on Friday. Arsenal are going to be speaking at 5:15 Friday afternoon English time over in Budapest. There'll be 2 Arsenal players put up as well, and I'm sure they'll be respectful and saying it's a 50-50 game. they would have been told by Mikel Arteta, you're going to win it, and you can win it, and you will win it. And they'll believe they can win it. And and the beauty of it is it's a free hit for Arsenal. The pressure's off. I'm just trying to think the last time an English team were in a Champions League final where there wasn't any pressure on them. Because it normally is, isn't it? Well, you know, and I'm thinking
because
probably
even the Manchester City teams that were getting there on a more regular basis, they had such a wait for them to finally get that trophy because it was the one they hadn't won under Pep. So
yeah, and because they'd spent so much, and you know, when Chelsea were in it, was always there's pressure. So there was Liverpool, Tottenham, 2019. There was pressure on Liverpool, but there was actually all pressure on Tottenham as well because they still haven't won anything. So I'm thinking it's probably Liverpool 2018 when it was Klopp's first Champions League season. They got all the way to the final in Kiev. I remember I was there, Real Madrid, Gareth Bale, brilliant goal. There wasn't any pressure on that Liverpool team because they'd started the season in the playoff against Hoffenheim. So that's the last time because, you know, there is still pressure on Arsenal, but it's a free hit. It's not often you go into a Champions League final knowing whatever happens, you're going, you know, the next day be greeted by over probably 1 million people that are literally not going to care if you lost the final. Because I don't think Arsenal fans, you know, they want them to, want them to win it, but there were no fans that would care because it's still going to be one of the greatest days of their lives on Sunday. Seeing them on a bus, lifting it, you know, party day 4. Yeah, it would be brilliant. Yeah, so yeah, it's going to be a good weekend.
Yeah, it definitely will be. They've won the league title. They've got a free hit at the Champions League. Like you say, the goalkeeper is a weak point, and I think Donnarumma was probably the reason that Arsenal didn't get through to the final last year. So you know, the goalkeeper could be a massive swing in that situation. They had a tough result against Newcastle in the league phase as well. And there's plenty of positives for Arsenal to look at. In fact, everything seems positive at the moment. So I think let's leave it there on that happy note. All Arsenal fans who have watched this can spend the rest of the week convinced that they're going to win the Champions League. And yeah, what an exciting week for Arsenal fans. So thank you very much, Charlie. Thank you guys for watching. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.